In this Dark Dominion of Maldekar update, we are rocking the map. So I mentioned in the last video all the crazy things that went on during January, and I'll talk more about that at the end of this video. But in the meantime, a lot of progress happened with DDM. It came out golden during that process. So one habit I think I need to make is to just set a time and say, this is when I'm doing the update. Because I'm always wanting to add just one more thing into this update. So we're going to take a look at the state of the game right now. There's more things in the work. I worked on it this morning, and we'll see how it goes. It's like a game of Civilization. Just one more turn.
But just one more turn, please. Just one more.
Yep, that was my nephew's playing Civilization 1 on the Amiga 2500. It's still addictive to this day. Okay, so a lot has happened since the last time I showed it off. I'm very excited by some of the stuff that's in here now. Okay, so here is the game as it is now. And there's a couple of things you're going to notice on here. There used to be a window up here that has some monster information. Then there was another window, which I originally conceived of as the command window. And then I had a window down here that was the text window. So I quickly came to the conclusion that there's not enough room for text. Putting the monsters here makes no sense whatsoever because they'll be on the map. You'll be able to tell by the sprites what they are. And putting them up here was limiting me to 3. So what I set out to do is I removed that. The top of the window here now has a status bar. So the very top, for instance, this shows the terrain underneath the player. So when the sprite's not transparent, you're going to be able to see where you're at. It also has information like, for instance, if you go into debug mode, it's got a little warning that you're in debug, like you could miss it. The other thing is that anything that was not meant to be part of the game has been removed. So here where it said the map is real, the rest is a mock-up, that's gone. Everything's real. Nothing's a mock-up. I haven't got players in yet, so obviously this is going to stay blank for a little bit. But if I move around, as I'm moving down on the map, eventually the text on there should, there we go, scroll. And that is both showing that text scrolling is working. Whoop-de-doo. That was, pretty easy. But also that it's roughly a 10% chance, or specifically it's a 25 in 255 chance. That is working random number generation, and I can use that routine to do just about anything I need to do. So RNGesus is in. And then as we move south, you'll notice that we no longer have a duplicate map, that the map continues. And the map goes all the way on down to here. So I have a 4-chunk map for development that I can use for the entire thing. There is an island over here, but I have no way to get there without using debug mode at the moment. I do have proper walkability in, normal walkability, so like I can't go down on the river. I can't move on the mountains, but I can on the others. So I do have a lot of the code and stuff done for the walkability I plan to use in the game. There is a post on the free Patreon where you can see some information about what I have in mind. It's a little different than anything I've seen in a game before, but it makes more sense to me. I may have talked about it in an early video. Honestly, I can't remember. Now, another thing you'll see here, so I got this tower up here, and if I go up here, hey, guess what? I'm going to stop recording and pull the rest of the updates off of GitHub. Oops. I periodically publish updates on DDM progress on Patreon, and you can get access to that for free. Patron members get early access, but many of the articles become public after a week or so. Things like this post I just recently did on the DDM update, a lot of it is information that's actually in this video. And this is all information that you can go see right now. It's free. Hey, that's my Laura Lee. That's my wife way back in the day in EverQuest. Apparently I had a conflict that I created myself in my GitHub repository, and so because I'd made a little change to a comment out on this computer and then done a bunch of stuff in the house, well, this had overwritten that, and the new stuff wasn't here. So, oh God, let's try it again. If I go down here, and hey, look, there's a ford and a river, all this new terrain. Little castle with the drawbridge there, and then here there's now a ford across the river. There's a way through the mountains, and you can get to the dungeon. And you'll notice as I stepped onto that cave, a little asterisk, a splat as it were, appeared up in the top in the status bar. So that is telling you that there is something of interest there, and you use the new command L for look to see what it is. A dark cave descends. Press X if you dare. Press X, you're in the dungeon. Do some running around. And when you return to the entrance, you can come back out and move along on your adventures. And there's a few things like that. Over here, there's another cave. We hit L for look. And the cave entrance is blocked by a rock fall. So I guess we're not going in there for now. Because, hey, I only have one dungeon made. Down here. So like here, there's a splat. And when you look, it tells you that north is to the Westerlands, east to Capital City, and to the south is Stetland Village. Let's stay Stetland? I doubt it. I just made it up as I was typing the text. And as we move in further, there's another point of interest here. The great capital city lies before you. And then as a demonstration that the same message can be used in multiple places, the great capital city lies before you. Nothing exciting there, but, you know, it was, I thought, important to test. And this map will be evolved because like this river is supposed to go to the exit. I just realized today that I didn't finish routing it. So, oops, big jungle down here. This little village with a wide ford across the river. There's another signpost here. North Road, Capital City, the Wilds, or the Coast Road. Now, if you'll remember in the last one, I had the issue where if I stood here and went down, I ended up in this place instead of this, and everything was out of sync. So as we go down, we now know that the very bottom row that you see here now is in a completely different chunk, a completely different piece of memory. The code as it is can recognize that it doesn't have a chunk in memory. So if I do something like, for instance, go up here, then I go into debug mode and I go up here. So I can't move beyond this point because that would leave the map. I am at 0, 0 on the map. If I come out of debug mode though, there's still ocean up there. So the code recognizes that there is no chunk, that those are invalid chunks. And so it fills it with ocean. And then if I cruise over here, la 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 la. So now here we have another chunk border. And when I step across, it's still filling it with ocean. In this case, it's a valid chunk, but it knows it's missing. So the code that it's jumping to for the chunk that I'm in now is lying to it and telling it that it loaded the chunk and it's just presenting a chunk of all ocean. But once I get the disk access and stuff done and get chunks created that can be stored as files, then that same code, it'll just jump to the same code, it'll load the chunk, hand it to it, and display it here. So we are in good shape on the map. Got random number generator, we got text. I'm really excited about the text part. It starts making it feel more like a game. When I was working on this game back in 1986, I had just gotten to Germany and got my Commodore 128. And one of the things I was working on was the map. The map is actually sitting here in this pile of papers, and I got my very first CD player, man, and just felt like the future, going from cassette tape like the Top Deck to laser music. At the time, I had like 3 CDs to my name, maybe 4, and I listened to them quite a lot while I was working on the game. This whole process has given me a lot of flashbacks to that time as I worked on the maps, and then as I took those original maps from 1986 and got them finally complete into the game, and then took it from there. So what we have here is the top left chunk of data. BBs are ocean. You can kind of see the outline of the coast. This is just the data represented as raw hexadecimal. This is exactly what goes in the code. Chunk 00. So this here is the same as this here, but this is really hard to work with. I basically had to take the original map from back in the 80s, look up the hex code for each thing, and start typing them out. So what I did is I made a map that is the size, each of these is a chunk, and so each of these I can type the characters into. Getting these shorelines right was a pain in the neck. I had to use my original document from the 80s to look at the 16 different possibilities and figure out what values go where. And as you can see here, they're just showing up as white squares because I couldn't at the time figure out a way to make that sensible in Excel. So now, this right here, if I copy this and paste it without formatting, which is exactly where this came from, that's what you get. But now, it makes it very quick and easy for me to edit a map without spending several weeks on a map editor. So you can easily see you've got the rivers, got the ford, swamps, all the coastlines. I didn't even know Excel did this. You can do a gradient in the background as a conditional format. So I was able to make matching coastline tiles, which makes it really easy to see if something's not lined up right. And there's a few things I need to fix. The little dotted lines around things are to show that it's a town, roads. Anything that's red like this, you'll notice that every single tile is in hexadecimal 8-1 or higher, except the red ones. So the red ones are the ones where the splats, the asterisks appear. And what I've done is just simply, this is supposed to be AC, so I took 8 hex off of it, 80 hex off of it. I basically subtracted 128 from it. And that means that I'm just taking the very most significant bit and clearing it. And so when it displays the map, it just resets that bit because that bit is set on every single legal tile for the map. That's the upper half of that character set. So by having these here, the game can detect that there's information there and it doesn't have to go through all the list every time or not tell you that there's something of interest there and you have to hit L for look at every spot. You don't want to do that. What would that be like? So you'd be in hell, you'd be moving around on the map going, look, nothing of interest, look, hey, there's nothing of interest, let's go look here, hey, nothing of interest, nothing of interest. Oh, hey, there you go. Great capital city lies before you. I thought about making it so that it would just automatically show the text, but then as you're running around, you go back past here, go past here again, get that again, go past here again, go off somewhere else and come back. You'd end up with really busy text with just the same things over and over, and that just didn't feel right. So I changed it to do it this way. Okay, so now let's talk a little bit about what's coming up next. So the text definitely needs a lot more work. This is just a proof of concept. It is the first iteration of text on the map. I still have a lot to do. I have a pretty complicated system design that's supposed to allow me to put a maximum amount of text in the game because text takes a lot of space. By having a system where instead of each letter being defined, so saying the great capital city lies before you, the system I have designed would be able to just point to the word the word great. So there's a way for it to indicate that this word is just spelled out. So the game would go get great, and then put, say, the word capital as CAPITOL, and then onward. But this system, I think, will allow for the maximum amount of text in the game because I want it to feel like the old games and kind of that digital dungeon master feel, like it's guiding you and there's a world and there's more information. Also for text, we're going to have, I think, pretty sure, some paragraphs to read outside the game. So it may, you go at a point of interest and you go look and it just tells you, go to page 3 and read the third paragraph. So the next thing I'm also going to be doing, and one of the reasons I haven't done some of the other stuff, is I've learned a neat trick that I didn't know existed. At least I haven't tried it yet, but the VIC-2 chip can only look at 16K of RAM at a time. And by default, it's looking at the first 16K in the Commodore 64, which is why the screen memory is at hex 1000 or 1024 in decimal. But if you point the VIC to the fourth bank, which is the very last 16K of memory, then I can put the screen at a section there that's where I normally put my small assembly code at C000. That space has the character ROM in it. But by putting the bank to the fourth, and since I have my own character ROM, I can put the screen there, put my character ROM under the kernel, and the kernel is, I believe, 8K of code that's built in the machine that I need. Basic I've gotten rid of. Basic is banked out. It looks like, and this is really cool, I can put my characters, my font, and my sprites underneath the kernel. And so when the machine tries to write to that, because a ROM is not writable, it'll write into the RAM. But when the processor tries to read from it, it'll get the kernel routines. But since the processor doesn't need to read the fonts or the sprites, only the VIC-2 does, when the VIC-2 looks there, it sees the RAM. So it's like getting an extra 8K. So what is that, a Commodore 72? Neat trick. I did not know about that back in the day. I've only found a couple references to it online, although people say it was a common trick. I have never seen or heard of it before. So I'm going to be reshuffling the whole memory map. That's probably going to take a little while. It's going to break everything until I fix all the references. So got a little bit of technical debt, but in the long run, that's basically getting me 8 free K and a lot of memory for sprites. So I'll be able to do a lot more sprites than I thought I could. And that frees up some memory and lower memory. I'm hoping to then dedicate at least 4 or 6K to text. It's really feeling more and more like a game every day. For me, just having a complete map that you can run around on has a little bit of flavor. I really think this mountain needs a cave in it. What do you think? There. There's a few things I can do, like using coastline tiles to add more variation. So I'm still working on tweaking these coast tiles. It's hard with the limits on this machine to make the world not feel repetitive, but with a few tricks, it seems like I'm going to be able to do that. First, of course, I mentioned that we had the ice storm, and it did so much damage. Our power was out for over 5 days. We have so many trees down. We've been cleaning it up. It's now April, and we've been cleaning it up since then. The whole shtick in the end of the last update video with the generator. Oh my God, my stupid generator. I could not get the stupid thing to start. So I finally took it and switched it over to propane, and it started up, and I got it to run. I was thrilled until it ran for like 3 hours on a 5-gallon tank of propane and quit. So we were just spending our time huddling in the house as it got colder and colder and colder. And I was trying to just get a little bit of heat in the bedroom for nighttime and keep the freezer and the fridge cold. That's pretty much all we could do with our generator. Laura and I got the power on like at 9 at night before we flew out on the vacation. So we had a 2-hour delay for our flight to a place where we had a 1-hour changeover. Oops. So obviously we didn't make our connecting flight. We get there around 3:15. It's really close. We grab a cab. We get over to where we're supposed to be getting on the ship, and then we get to the gate and they tell us, sorry, the gangplanks are up, it's too late, you can't get on. So they booked us a flight the next morning to Puerto Vallarta, flew there, and they said we'll put you up in a hotel for like a day and a half, 2 nights until the ship gets here. And then we get to this place, it's like a 4 or 5-star all-inclusive resort, food's included, drinks are included. I was like, and so they get us assigned a room, and we go up to the room, and we open the door and walk in, and there's a lady laying in the bed. Thank God she was clothed. She's like, hello, and I'm like, yeah, I think I got the right room because the key opened the door. She's like, no, my husband and I just checked in. I thought you were him coming in. It's like, oh God. So we go back down. And so they comped us a room with a better view because this one was on the back of the resort. So instead they put us in another room, and look at the beautiful view and the beautiful sunsets we had. So after a week of just absolute stress, I mean, it was the week from hell, dealing with the power and the flights and the missing the boat. Oh God, I was just ready to pull it here. I couldn't even get a grip to pull my hair out. And so we got on the ship, did a couple stops, but then we entered the Panama Canal, which was kind of the main point of this cruise, at least from San Diego, goes through the Panama Canal and then it goes to Florida. And while we were in the canal, it's like you go through all the locks and stuff, and then you got several hours of just sailing through the Gaeton, called the Gaeton Gap or something like that, and into the lake before you get to the other locks. We were behind a really slow ship for a while, just puttering along. So wife said, I'm going to go take a nap. I said, okay, I'm just going to go putz on my code while you're napping. So I set up the laptop right out on the balcony, the closet with the wall missing, and just kind of tinkered around with the code, and I made a breakthrough and figured out a bug that had been bugging me, pun intended, I guess, a bug that had bugged me for a couple of days, and got it working. So while we were actually in the Panama Canal, I got the last major bug fixed, and for the first time, the surface chunk-based code ran beautifully. So kind of like that point of principal completion. There's a game is done when you stop working on it, and even stuff like this is done when you stop working on it. So it'll get changed and evolved over time, but it was done working, and I actually had 4 chunks showing up exactly the way I wanted them to. So I'm thinking somewhere along the line here, I need to work a canal into this game. I mean, how can I not? So we finished the vacation. One last little thing. We got off the boat in Florida, and we go to the airport, and the line is coming out the door and down the block. And we're like, what the heck? We had plenty of time, so I wasn't worried about missing our plane. But we get in this monster line, and it turned out that that morning, the largest cruise ship in the world had finished its maiden voyage and disgorged, I think it was 8,000 or 10,000 people at the port. So, anyway. So, that's the story of the storm and the vacation and the canal, and you know, I'm going to try to work a canal into the game. If you have any questions or comments, put them below. I hope you like this video, and if you haven't seen it, here's the video where I first announced this project.